Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko. I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience out of Las Vegas. Currently, I travel the country and I teach people about courage, resilience, and leadership. So, when most people think about courage, they think of these big, dramatic acts, rushing into danger, making life or death decisions, or even like public speaking or standing in front of a crowd. But real courage can also show up in these smaller ways, in these small, everyday choices that most people don't see. And I think that, I call back to that old definition of integrity that everybody that's done a police oral board is asked, like, well, what is integrity? Well, it's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. I probably heard that on 1,000 oral boards that I've graded throughout my career. And, but to be courageous when nobody is looking or nobody will find out about it, I think that is honorable, and you're not doing it for attention or to be called a hero or anything like that. But so courage lives in those daily crossroads and the moments like being honest instead of saying silent, admitting you were wrong instead of digging in. I know that happens in relationships. There's times that I've been in a discussion with my wife, and I realized about halfway through that I was wrong. And I will say I'm usually pretty quick to admit that I'm wrong and apologize, but we all have those moments where pride takes over and we dig in, and I'm gonna just keep arguing this point, or even choosing to rest when pride says push harder. One of my big things is, I whether I'm working out or lifting weights, sometimes I don't remember to take rest days, and because I often use fitness as a escape or, a way to deal with the stresses of everyday life. And but because of that, I'm opening myself up to certain injuries, and my pride is telling me to keep going. But one thing to think about is every small act of courage strengthens you for bigger ones. The way you handle hard conversations at home is connected to how you handle pressure at work, and vice versa. Another thing, just an example of maybe more literal courage or doing the hard thing is, let's say you're driving down the street headed somewhere in a hurry. You have to get a kid to practice and they're going to be late, or you're on your way to work and you drive by a car accident. And maybe it's not the car's on fire and flipped over, but you don't know if anybody's hurt. And if you can do so safely, maybe stopping and checking on that person, making sure they're okay. And you're putting, someone else's welfare over your timetable of when you're going to get to work or your kids practice. But those little moments, they add up in the course of your life. And because of that, the hardest battles, the hardest moments to display courage, they're often the ones that nobody claps for. Showing up to therapy, apologizing, choosing patience with your kids after a long day when you want to explode because they're getting on your last nerve, with which anybody with kids knows that kids get on your nerves, especially when you're really frustrated with something completely unrelated to them. It's like they have a radar for knowing that. When you're already in a bad mood, that's when they're going to ask 1,000 times for something. And as a dad, they ask me far less than they do moms. So I'm not blind to that. These micro moments, they also test your character, not for other people to think that you're, this upstanding amazing person, but internally too, because it's easy to say that you value honesty or courage or kindness or even humility, but those tests come in those small forgettable moments when you have to choose those moments over comfort or pride. And you're showing something to yourself in those moments, and having the ability to say that you always do the right thing. It doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, but when you have that moment to choose courage over, pride or ego, it it does something internally to yourself, because you start to carry that pride in yourself that yes, you are a good person and you are brave and you do make the hard decisions when other people wouldn't. Knowing that the consistency though in that beats the intensity. That means consistency in all the small things adds up more than the one big time that you show courage. You can show courage, and you know, I you can, like my example, I was involved in a very large active shooter, several. here in Las Vegas, unfortunately. And, that's good and all. But if I'm not living my life every day honorably and being brave when, honestly, sometimes you don't want to, that is what is going to decide whether I'm a good person. I don't want on my gravestone that I was responded to these active shooters, that I did these things. I just wanted to say I'm a good person. So those micro moments that reveal what's on the inside, that you are in fact an honorable and a good person, that's what matters. Because you don't suddenly become courageous in crisis, right? You build these small habits and these small decisions, telling the truth, keeping your word, doing what you say you're going to do, admitting to fear. Those things show up in under pressure time and time again throughout your life. So ultimately, real courage is just not in the big acts that make the news. It's in those quiet daily decisions where you can show up with honesty, humility, strength, because courage in those micro moments, that's what builds a life of integrity. It's really what prepares you for the moments that matter most. Thank you for listening today. If you like the podcast, you can share it with a friend, leave a review, subscribe. And if you like what I talk about, there's a lot more in my book, The Courage to Live, which you can find on Amazon. And I'll also throw the link in the description of this podcast. So I appreciate you spending time with me today.